the right to protest far right. And so just as I say, we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around. We aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Now that'll preach. That'll preach, won't it? It's so good to see all of you on this ice-cold morning. Oh, y'all knew I was going to say it. On behalf of the men of Alpha Lambda Fraternity Incorporated, I want to welcome everyone to the 5th Annual Hope Breakfast. You know, and I would be remiss if we didn't take a moment just to recognize the beautiful women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Happy Founders Day to y'all. And I also want to mention just a wonderful experience to be with the lovely ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated on Saturday for their bruncheon that they had. So just congratulations to you also. Amen. You know, we would not be here at this moment if it were not for God. So we do want to take time just to bow and give thanks to Him as we begin this wonderful program. So let us pray. Gracious Father, we just thank you so much for the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Father, he was a great man who did so much for so many. And we're so grateful that he was a member of our great fraternity, dear God. We give you thanks for that and for the example that he has set. And Father, we thank you for all that have gathered here at this moment, dear God, to celebrate his life and look towards the future, dear God. For he set an example for us to follow, not to memorialize. So we just thank you and just ask that you would just lead, God, and direct us this morning. We are ever so thankful. Amen. Amen. My name is Eric French. I have the pleasure of serving as Vice President of the Alpha Lambda Chapter of Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I have the pleasure of introducing our Mistress of Ceremony this morning. And to be perfectly honest, you hear it said a lot, but she really does not need an introduction. Everybody, let me say it like I say at church, everybody knows Don G. She's a part of our family. She is a part of our community for 20 years. She's been a part of Wave 3. She is an author. She is a leader. She started 2 nonprofits. I have a page of information that I could share with you. But here's what I'll share with you that I think is most important. Now, I'm going to give you the mic in a minute. I need you to slow down. The most important thing I was getting ready to say is she is a mother to Eric, Alexander, and Brittany. And that's what matters most. And so we're just so grateful to have her with us again this morning. So please, can you welcome the person standing next to me? Don G.
Thank you, brother friend. Ain't nobody got time for all of that, right? Let's do this. Let's do that. It is a blessing to see you. I am glad you arrived here safely for the faith, leadership, and service. Let's please give a round of applause to Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Inc., Alpha Lambda Chapter, Alpha Lambda Education Foundation. These brothers have been keeping this going, and it's been getting bigger and bigger. My job is to move this along. I am kind of your time stewardess. So I'm going to do this as quickly as I can and make sure that everything gets done while still recognizing an extremely important holiday. What I want you to do first and quickly, which I guess we probably have no problem with, but if someone is near you and you don't know them, real fast, this ain't let me go tell Sadiq was something real fast because I couldn't catch you at the office time. That's not what this is, and I'll call you out. I know most of you. Just say hello and introduce yourself to someone you don't know. Just real quick, somebody you don't know. Say hello, my name is. Real quick. Real quick. Hello, my name is. Hello, my name is. All right. Just like church, you need to settle back down in your pew now. Right? Settle it back down in your pew. Get back over there, Barbara. All right. I thank you for that. Sometimes we go places and we don't connect with the people that are there. Maybe they look different than us. Maybe we don't know them. And we miss the chance to know the rest of our community. We miss that. I don't know how I will need you. And so it's best that we connect and we work together. I'd like to take the time to thank the sponsors. If you're here, please stand quickly. And you all remember, if you can thank these people, if you know anybody from these organizations or businesses, thank them because they don't have to give. And in a climate that we have today, it's extremely important. A huge thank you to Louisville Gas and Electric. If you're here, anyone, stand up. Thank you. Brown Foreman, PNC Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Emma's Ministries, UPS, Louisville Free Public Media, Dr. Greg Wolfo, Stoddard and Associates, Texas Roadhouse, G.C. Williams Funeral Home, and Park, P-A-R-C. Give them a real for real thank you. Another note, just so you know, WFPL is recording this for broadcast. Not that anybody's gonna say something they don't want heard, because if you mean it and you say it, then that's what it is, right? And also, when this is done, if you want to walk through the ALEF Center, you are allowed to do that for free. And we want to make sure that if you've never been in here, you need to look around and share and see what's in here. Also, I want to recognize the elected leaders that are in the house today. If I miss somebody, then yell it up here. John Yarmouth, member of the U.S. House of Representatives for Kentucky's 3rd District. Stand, please, if you're here. Reginald K. Meeks, member of Kentucky House of Representatives, representing District 42. Jessica Green, Metro, and y'all ought to be clapping anyway. They work for you, really. There we go, Jessica. Yeah, it's called Jessica Green, Metro Councilwoman Serving District. And you know, I said that. I can't tell you who to clap for, so if you just... I'm just thinking, though. They work hard for us. Barbara Sexton Smith, Metro Councilwoman Serving District 4. Denise Clayton, Judge, Kentucky Court of Appeals, 4th Appellate District, Division 2. Denise Brown, Judge, Jefferson County Family Court of the 30th Judicial Circuit. Brian C. Edwards, Judge, Circuit Court Judge for the 30th Judicial Circuit. Daryl Laverly, Judge Division 2 for the 30th Judicial Circuit. Dervin L. Webb, Judge, Jefferson County Family Court of the 30th Judicial Circuit. Thomas B. Wine, Commonwealth Attorney for the 30th Judicial Circuit. Metro Councilman Vitalis Lashima, the 21st District. We also like to recognize Mark Carter, President, CEO, Passport Health Plan. Please stand if you're here. Rhea Chandler, President of Jack and Jill of America, Inc., Derby City Chapter. Shonda Glover, President of Kentucky Chapter of the National Black MBA Association. Larry McDonald, President, CEO, Lincoln Foundation. Tori Murden McClure, President, Spalding University. Carolyn Tandy, Diversity Director, Texas Roadhouse. Now also these are candidates running for elected office to be in attendance today. Tracy Davis, candidate, Jefferson District Court. Rory Goodwin, candidate, Jefferson District Court. Tanisha Hickerson, candidate, Jefferson District Court. Retired Captain Ronell Brown, candidate, Kentucky State Representative, District 29. And he can sing too. James Penny, candidate, Kentucky State Representative, District 30. If you would all just give one collective round of applause for the work they're doing. I would also ask that before election comes, I ain't gonna never tell you who to vote for, but number one, vote. Somebody died for you to do that, literally. And number two, please don't walk into that voting booth and go, I like that name. Some of y'all don't get what I'm saying, and that scares me. Know who you are voting for. It is your responsibility and right. No, find out. Find out who these folks are. Right now, please bring in greetings the Alpha Lambda Chapter President, Cecil Brookins. Give him a round of applause.
Greetings. Greetings. I am truly excited and honored to welcome you this morning to our 5th annual Hope Breakfast. Wow. 5 years, come on now. It is because of your continued support, year after year, we are able to keep this event a highlight of the King's celebration. It is also because the tireless work of the men of Alpha Phi Alpha have put in over the last 11 months. That's right, we start right after this. As president, I asked a lot of my brothers, but looking from what I see at the podium, it is well worth it. Our brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is best known for his I Have a Dream speech that served as a catalyst that sparked a movement that changed our communities. We also know that without action, dreams fail to come to fruition. The Alpha Lambda Chapter dreamed that we would empower our communities with the importance of voter registration and education. We implemented a Voteless People is a Hopeless People campaign. The national program is even more critical now given the current political climate we are faced with. We dreamed that we would provide education, motivation, and skill building on issues of responsibility, relationships, teen pregnancy, and sexually transmitted diseases for young males. Last month, we implemented Project Alpha to almost 40 young men during an after-school lock-in. We dreamed of offering a non-traditional competition to introduce diversity to the game of chess. In October, we hosted the first annual Louisville Scholastic Chess Open, providing awards and academic scholarships, exposing youth from Jefferson County and surrounding counties. We dreamed of expanding our mentorship to young men, which is our primary focus. Last year, we started our 6th year at Cameron Middle School, where we implement our Alpha Academy mentoring to almost 60 young men. The Alpha Lambda Chapter dreamed that we would create an event to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. With hard work and the support of our sponsors, we celebrate 5 years today. As I take my seat, I challenge each one of you to always dream. Dream for a better day today, dream for a better tomorrow. But never forget, without hard work, advocacy, mentoring, volunteering, tourism, community service, involvement in your sorority, your fraternity, Urban League, NAACP, Black NBA, Junior League, churches, and community organizations, your dream would never become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. You know, dreams, as President Brookins said, are so important. We always talk about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, which today still moves me to tears. But we got to remember, not only do we have to dream, we got to get out there and work. Right. We got to get out there and do the work. And so that's another reason it's so good to see you here when it's such a cold day. Even Muhammad Ali knew about the work. We know what a champion he was, right? And I can remember one day we were doing a program for him and everybody talked, he knocked this person out, he did this, and he leaned over to me and he goes, he couldn't speak loud anymore, and he goes, "Die." I'm like, yeah. He said, how come don't nobody ever talk about my road work before anybody else was up? Why don't they talk about, I was in the gym longer than anybody else, punching when other folks were gone home. He said, I worked to get there. I worked to get there. He said, talk about my work. So that's the important thing. When you leave here today, think about what you're going to do work-wise. And if you think you can't do it, I do everything by faith. I even bank by faith. I shouldn't do that. I know. I'm like, come on, Lord, swipe that card. Jesus. Come on. I know I can buy this. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that I do everything by faith. And as Dr. King said, faith is taking the step even when you don't see the staircase. So we need to go out on faith and do some wonderful things. We have some opening quick remarks. I'm going to call these in order, and you will remember, I'm sure, the order you are in, so I don't have to come back up and come back up and come back up. Congressman John Yarmouth coming first, Metro Councilwoman Barbara Sexton Smith, and then Spalding University President Tori Merton McClure. Has John made it in? Okay, then that means Metro Councilwoman Barbara Sexton Smith will start. Tori, you will follow.
Okay.
Oh, lower.
All right. Yeah. All right, Dawn, put me on a clock, honey. She said these are going to be quick. And good morning, Jessica. It's great to see you, darling. I'm loving me some of that Jessica Green. Give her a round of applause. They said the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So Congressman Yarmouth might come in here any moment now. God sent two incredible messengers to the world in 1929. He sent Dr. Martin Luther King, and he sent Anne Frank. I just want y'all to think about that for a moment. He knew us before we knew ourselves. He knew those who would be and would be always be persecuted, and he sent two of the most powerful messengers here in 1929. 50 years ago, he took one of our messengers home. But the promised land, my message this morning, Pedro, is to say the promised land is right here. Yes, it is. All you got to do is look in the mirror. So I went to welcome everyone to a reality rally. Yeah, we have rallies for lots of things. For me, Martin Luther King represents a reality rally. Stay with me. It's an alliteration of a whole bunch of ours. It is each of our responsibility. We must recognize the reality, and receive the responsibility to reshape our nation one person at a time. So as we leave out of here this morning with lots of wonderful words on our heart and in our mind and a skip in our walk and a song in our heart, I want you to think about something. Find out where you resonate with Dr. King. Ask yourself, how are you going to live out the dream of the promised land? For me, it comes from The King and I, the great musical. One of the greatest songs in the great musical, The King and I, was I Could Have Danced All Night. Well, my mama, God rest her soul, always said to me, Barbara Ann, don't you ever forget who brought you to the dance. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. King brought us to this dance. He brought us to this dance. And it's our responsibility to listen to the music, feel the beat, with love in our heart, one voice at a time. That's what we got to do. Listen to one another. Recognize the reality. Receive the responsibility to reshape this nation one person at a time. I don't mean go out and do something about somebody else. I mean do something about ourselves. So I do that simply by instilling hope in the hearts of everyone I meet. I'm going to ask you to try that today. Instill hope in the heart of everyone you meet, because when you do that, we shall overcome. If there's enough hope spread around and believed in our hearts and shared with our voice and in our love and our actions, we can wipe out fear and despair and darkness. We can do that together, one person at a time. So when you instill hope in the hearts of others, you create an attitude of possibility, and an attitude of possibility creates self-confidence, and that self-confidence is the power within each and every one of us to do what he wants us to do. So, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, I have three things. You want something, do something. You see something, say something. You think something, be something. Be the promised land. Can we do that? Can we do it every day, everywhere, every voice? Thank you.
Didn't want to follow Barbara. It's always trouble. And I don't have a lot to say this morning. I wanted to say good morning. I'm so glad you've outgrown Spalding. We'd have had you at Spalding. You were just too large and healthy crowd to come back to Spalding. So I'm glad you're at the Ali Center. I was the first full-time employee of the Muhammad Ali Center. I'm very proud of that. Having been the first employee, not necessarily where we ended up, because I'd only worked for Muhammad for a while when he convinced me I had to go back and successfully row a boat alone across the Atlantic Ocean. So I didn't stay long enough. Muhammad didn't want the Muhammad Ali Center to be a boxing museum. He wanted it to be a place for tolerance and for healing. And you know, those core principles, some of us might have just flat made those up. But he wanted it to be about tolerance and healing, and we got into big arguments about tolerance and what tolerance meant and whether that was enough. And he was really clear, tolerance is not the goal, tolerance is the front door. And the healing is what takes place inside. And he was not a perfect man, and Dr. Martin Luther King was not a perfect man, and institutions aren't perfect because the people who lead them aren't perfect. But we are all capable of redemption, every one of us. No soul is so white that it cannot be redeemed, and no country is so flawed that it cannot be redeemed. And so I'm off in search of redemption, and I hope some of you will join me. The institution here, the Ali Center, could be more. It should be a place for healing. Our institutions should be places of healing. Have a great morning.
Thank you both, Barbara and Tori, very, very much. We have a musical selection now, and I'm going to ask certainly that you stand as this artist comes to sing and listen to the words, and hopefully you know the words. Will you please welcome Erica Dixon, lift every voice, and sing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is actually Erica Denise. It's a misprint in the program. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has taught us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We now have the Litany of Commemoration, Dr. Greg Wolfel.
A litany of commemoration. Our Lord God wisely has chosen men and women to serve as his channels. Martin Luther King Jr. was God's channel, whose birth we now commemorate. We are thankful for the life of this 20th century prophet of freedom, who joined the prophets of history in the cry. Martin Luther King Jr. envisioned the ultimate freedom, the freedom achieved in struggle, the freedom reached in brotherhood, the freedom fired by the dream of a man, the freedom inspired by the lot of a people, the freedom free of hate, the freedom full of love. And so he set off with us on a journey for justice. It was a journey proclaiming the words of the ancient prophet Amos. Let justice roll down like waters and righteous like a mighty stream. It was a journey calling forth the modern Christian ministry to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to set at liberty those who are oppressed.
In the name of the prophet Amos, in the name of suffering people, let my people go.
So we are thankful that the Spirit of the Lord anointed a man who preached good news to the poor, who rejected segregation and embraced liberation, who prophesied the greatness of his people in struggle for the deliverance of all people.
In the name of the Spirit of the Lord, let my people go.
We praise the Lord God for sending us a man of peace. Thank you, Lord, for Martin Luther King Jr., who inspired us with his dream. Thank you for this noble legacy to continue the journey to land here on earth in life for all people. Thank you, God, for you have sent us one who now causes us to say, in the name of Martin Luther King Jr., let my people go.
We now have our presenters for faith, leadership, and service. I will read a little bit about each one of them before they go. Just so you don't panic though, because I know what it is like to sit where you are and not maybe be part of the program. I will only give highlights of the last two speakers, but our first presenter is a student presenter. And because that presenter is young and just starting his journey of being a leader, I'm gonna read the whole thing. So don't go, oh my God, is she gonna do that every time somebody gets up? No. Everybody else's is gonna be a little shorter. This one I will read in entirety, and when this young man comes up, y'all better make some noise. Okay, y'all looking at me like, Lord. Elliot Kelly Jr., a Louisville native, is a graduate of Central High School. While in high school, he was a wrestling team captain, marching band section leader, Men of Quality president, as well as a member of both the YMCA Black Achievers and Whitney M. Young Scholars program. During his senior year, he made the choice to accept the Woodford R. Porter Scholarship and attend the University of Louisville. You can clap anywhere you want to. Elliot is currently a sophomore majoring in finance with a minor in Pan-African Studies. While at the university, Elliot has found happiness in serving and uplifting others while trying to find his own path to success. He is a Connect mentor, where he serves as a mentor to a group of African-American freshmen and helps them navigate through their freshman year at a predominantly white institute, PWI. He is also a member of the student orientation staff, vice president of Collegiate 100, and member of the Brothers United. In addition to on-campus involvement, Elliot is also active throughout the Louisville community. Elliot is the coach of the Legacy Wrestling Club, where he is able to use his love of wrestling to teach elementary and middle school children valuable lessons that lead to success both on the wrestling mat and in everyday life. He also is an instructor for the Louisville Urban League Street Academy program, where he serves as a mentor for 4th and 5th grade boys. Elliot plans to earn his MBA and become a financial advisor. I'll be seeing that young man. Eventually, he will open his own financial institute where he will make sure to provide services and workshops for high school and college students. Would you please welcome the first presenter, Elliot Kelly Jr.
Good morning. First off, I'd like to thank the brothers of the Alpha Lambda Chapter of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated for giving me this opportunity to speak this morning. Second, I'd like to greet all the esteemed guests in attendance. And just think about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is something that I reflect on a regular, because I'm somebody who expects nothing but the best for myself. So to be the best, you have to learn from the best, right? So thinking about his legacy, it led me to what I want to talk about this morning. And this is something that I learned growing up from my mother and father, who are actually in attendance. Because growing up, there's a lot of things that I've been through and seen, a lot of things that I've experienced, but it's the little things about my life that I remember the most. Like learning how to ride a bike, like throwing football with my father. And one of the things what I'm going to talk about today is my family's garden growing up. So there's a lot of lessons I learned from it. I didn't like it all the time just because I always have to water the plants and we do all that extra stuff. But like, I thought it was just super cool that we got to grow our own things, super cool that we didn't have to rely on everybody else for our own. But then, like, as I started reflecting, there's a lot more to it than just those simple lessons of hard work, dedication. There's a lot more, and I just want to touch on the lessons that I learned from it. So the first thing that I learned from it is that the greatest things come from dirty places. Growing up, thinking about like the ground, the dirt, the mud, those are the places we don't want to go. Those are the places growing up that I didn't want to walk in with my white shoes on and mess up my shoes. Coming in from outside, hearing things like, "Boy, you smell like outside." Growing up, you learn things like these are dirty places. These are things that they're not suitable for all the time. But these second places that we call dirty, those are where the greatest miracles of life happen. That's where we get our best food from. That's where we grow our trees, where the trees that allow us to breathe and live. Everything, like the things that are conducive to life and the greatest gifts, those are the things that come from that ground. I compare that to the inner city. Think about people like Muhammad Ali, who was alluded to earlier. Those are the type of people that come, but it takes people willing to reach out to them and support them in order to help them grow and achieve that greatness that they can.
Yes.
That leads me to my second lesson. Life is about planting seeds. Muhammad Ali Jr., he would have never been in boxing, he would have never received the platform that he received if somebody wouldn't have introduced him to the sport. It always takes somebody reaching out, somebody reaching back, somebody giving in order for us to move forward. We need bridge builders. We need people who are willing to reach back. Somebody who's willing to sacrifice parts of themselves for the greater good. Because think about Dr. King, for example. When he died, his legacy didn't die. When he died, his impact didn't die. His soul didn't die, it lives on. Those are the things that we have to take into account. We have to be selfless in our actions, and we have to be willing to give to others. We have to be willing to reach back and plant those seeds so that people tomorrow can live a better life than we do today. And then that leads me to my third lesson. There are two types of people. In my opinion, everybody's an individual, everybody is completely different. But in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to serving others, there are two types of people. You have givers and you have takers. See, growing up in my parents' garden, the takers were the flies, the dragonflies, all that type of stuff, the rabbits that would be in the yard trying to get to our plants. And then you have people like us, the givers, the ones who watered the plants, the ones who laid the fertilizer, the ones who tilled the ground, pulled up the weeds, the ones who did the things that nobody really acknowledges, but the things that helped it thrive. See, taking is conducive to just enjoying something. You enjoy it while it benefits you, and once you don't get the benefit anymore, it's gone. Takers are the ones who enjoy the fruit while it's ripe. Takers are the ones who just take, and don't think about what they can give, what they can reciprocate, what they can give. But then you have givers. A giver is like love. Givers are the ones who water the plants. Givers are the ones who want to see it grow. Givers are the ones who do everything in their power to make sure that this young seed grows into a beautiful plant, grows into something that's beneficial. Think about that in everyday life too. The takers are the people around you who just are around you. I know we all know some takers in our lives. The people around us who just are around us because of things that we have to offer rather than what they can offer us. But then looking back on my life, there are many givers too. People in attendance like Larry McDonald, my parents, my mother and father. A lot of people, my wrestling coaches, not including the people that continually give to me today. But as I look back, I thought about all the givers, and like honestly, I started feeling bad because I'm like, man, all the greatness I've received, all the things that have been given to me, what can I do? Give. Simply put. A lot of times we receive, but we don't think about how we can pay that forward. But we have to take what we're given and pay it on. Things don't have to stop with us, but we have to make sure that people live a greater tomorrow. So now I'm not gonna keep you too long. I'm just about done. But I'm gonna ask you a few questions. Now that I told you about how I reflected, I'm gonna ask you all to reflect. Are you the ones who take the fruit while it's ripe, or do you plant the groundwork? Do you lay the road work, as she alluded to earlier? Are you a taker, or are you a giver? Thank you. That was
very proud. Where's mom and daddy? They like, here we are. There we are. Look at mama. Thank you. That's right. You deserve a round of applause for that and donation. Good job. Good God. I know. Our next speaker, Al Cornish, System Vice President, Learning and Organizational Development, Chief Learning Officer, and has been with Norton Healthcare since March of 2006. Cornish has more than 30 years experience in administrative training, human resource, and operations management. Mr. Cornish has a son, Alfonso II, who resides in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Will you please welcome this morning, Alfonso in Cornish.
Good morning. What a tough act to follow. You got Dawn and then you've got Elliot. First, let me thank the men of Alpha Lambda Chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha for inviting me to speak at this very auspicious occasion. It's both an honor and a privilege for me to be here, but it's an honor to share the stage with Sadiqa Reynolds, who you all know is the 2017 Person of the Year in Louisville. And as I was telling Pastor Scholl, every time I hear someone talk, they're talking about Burnett Avenue Church. So to be on the stage and to share it with him is also such an honor. Dawn was telling me earlier, she said, Al, you gotta stick to the script. You've got 10 or 15 minutes to speak. She said, my job is to keep you on track. And I said to her, I said, Dawn, does that mean I don't get any shout outs this morning? She says, Al, no shout outs this morning. So Dawn, if I could really give some shout outs this morning, I would have given it to the men of Alpha Lambda Chapter. This is their 5th year of this program. They deserve a round of applause. Not only that, but the work that they do in this community every single day with our youth, they need to be recognized. My partner and best friend, Dr. Yvonne Austin, she makes me call her doctor, and her SARS of the Louisville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And the men of Theta Omega Chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I love you all. And to all my fellow Greeks, the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha who are celebrating today, congratulations. Zeta Phi Beta, Sigma Gamma Rho, and the men of Kappa Alpha Psi, many of them are my friends, Phi Beta Sigma and Iota Phi Theta, to all of the Divine Nine. And I would not leave this stage without recognizing my pastor. He's my pastor, the Reverend Dr. F. Bruce William and his lovely wife, First Lady Michelle. And if you follow colleges and universities, you know that we have one of the finest colleges and universities in this city, Spalding University. And we have a great, not a good, but we have a great president that leads, that you saw earlier, Tori Merton McClure. As I thought about what to talk about today, a day in which we celebrate the life of a civil rights icon, a religious leader who changed the trajectory of the plight of all people, but especially people of color. The Hope Breakfast theme, Faith, Leadership, and Service, encapsulates the essence of the man and his mission. Daily, almost 24 hours a day, you can watch the news and hear the craziness being spewed from the very White House where Martin Luther King met with Presidents Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson to help shape the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act. Now, I don't need to repeat the happenings of the past week or year, but we know that about the creation of fake news and alternative facts, boggles my mind, were birthed from the current leadership. But I'm also old enough to remember what life was like before Dr. King. The separate but unequal conditions that we lived, separate but unequal schools, we got used hand-me-down textbooks, but we were blessed with great African-American teachers. Who not only cared, but they poured knowledge into us like no other. We had a community that taught and supported us and they taught us service. We had our own business, we had our own shopping, we had our own restaurants, we had our own social life. We prospered as a group of people who claimed and lived out our birthright and our destiny. Growing up in the 60s, at a very early age, I joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. There was this charismatic leader by the name of Marion Barry, who was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, who led it. Later there was John Lewis who led it, Stokely Carmichael, and H. Rap Brown. SNCC has been described by some as one of the most important organizations of the civil rights movement. What made it one of the most important organizations? It organized youth across the country to provide financial support to the civil rights and desegregation efforts. We were mentored and coached on nonviolent strategies. And guess what they had us do? We went out and protested. The baton was being passed and I didn't even know it. We owe so much to the work of Dr. King and the dream that he shared with the world over 50 years ago. The words hold true and sting today like they did then. I have spent my life's work in understanding and teaching leadership skills, opportunities that I may not have been given if it weren't for Dr. King. I want in the few minutes that I have to share what I have learned about leadership from the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King. If you would just for a moment imagine with me if Dr. King, a man who stood for justice, equality, love, and freedom were alive today, he'd probably say, nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscious stupidity. One of his more popular quotes, he went on to say, I am not interested in power for power's sake, but I'm interested in power that is right and that is good. What does that mean? Management thought leader John Maxwell says, a great leader's courage to fulfill his vision comes from passion, not position. Let me say that again. Comes from passion and not position. He also states that a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. What type of leader are you? What have we all done to continue the legacy of the dream that Dr. King spoke on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963? Today we are confronted with leaders of our country who cannot rise above the narrow confines of their individual concern to the broader concern of all humanity. And here are 8 things that I've learned from Dr. King. Number 1, great leaders do not sugarcoat reality. In his I Have a Dream speech, which came at a critical point in the civil rights movement, Dr. King did not pull any punches. He faced the most brutal facts of his current reality. Referring to Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation, and you know the words, but 100 years later, the Negro is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the monocles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. The second thing is great leaders engage the heart. While logic may compel the mind, stories and metaphors move the heart. And there was no one better than using stories and metaphors to define a situation than Dr. King. This is the difference between just offering information and inspiration. He said, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. In the end, we'll remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. The third thing, great leaders refuse to accept the status quo. In fact, I would say that is the defining characteristic of real leaders. They're not passive, they're active, they are not willing to acquiesce to their circumstances. He stated, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. The time is right always to do what is right. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. 4, great leaders create a sense of urgency. They're impatient in a good way. They refuse to just sit and let things take their natural course. They have a sense of urgency and they communicate it. If you remember, he said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. 5, great leaders call people to act in accordance with their highest values. It would have been easy for the civil rights movement to change tactics because of the violence that was used against them. And many of, even some of the people I named earlier, resorted to violence. Stokely Carmichael and H. Rap Brown. However, like Nelson Mandela, he called us to a higher standard. He said, human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertion and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. 6, great leaders refuse to settle. It would have been easy for Dr. King to negotiate a compromise, to settle for less than his vision demanded. But he was stubborn, but in a good sense. He persisted and he called on his followers to persevere. There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor political, nor popular, but he must take it because conscience tells him it is right. 7, great leaders acknowledge the sacrifice of their followers. They notice the effort their people have expended, they verbalize and affirm it. In his I Have a Great speech, I am not unmindful that some of you have come here of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storm of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. And finally, 8, great leaders paint a vivid picture of a better tomorrow. Leaders can never, 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 never grow weary of articulating their vision. They must be clear and concrete. They have to help their followers see what they see. Again, from his I Have a Dream speech, I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slaveholders will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I've only scratched the surface. His speeches are full of lessons and deserve careful study, and I'd encourage you in the spirit of this holiday to sit down with your family and watch some of his speeches. If you're looking for a great book, there's a book titled Martin Luther King Jr. on Leadership by Donald Phillips, and it's a great synopsis of those leadership things that you can learn from the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. His legacy is our legacy, and it is us who must take up the torch and live out the dream he spoke of on that day in Washington, D.C. His voice calls to us from heaven for each of us to be a bush if you can't be a tree, If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be a sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or fail. Be the best of whatever you are. The point to be and do something meaningful and purposeful. Whatever it is, just be the best. Have a purpose. Live in your purpose. And not only the moment, but to create your legacy. And the question I want to leave you with today is one that he called life's most persistent and urgent question. What are you going to do for others? We honor Dr. King by us living our lives with intention and purpose. Thank you so very much for your time.
Al Cornish, thank you. Next we have Sadiqa Reynolds, the president and CEO of the Louisville Urban League. Her appointment made her the first woman to hold this title in the affiliate's 95-year history. The league is committed to jobs, justice, education, health, and housing. She was also the first African-American woman to clerk for the Kentucky Supreme Court when she served as chief law clerk for the late Chief Justice Robert F. Stevens. She is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and also Bates Memorial Baptist Church. Our pastor, Dr. F. Bruce Williams, I say our, I'm a member there too. She loves to read, travel. She has two beautiful daughters, Sydney, 12, and Winter, 10. And as said before, Sadiqa Reynolds is the 2017 Louisville Magazine Person of the Year. Will you please welcome Sadiqa Reynolds.
Hello. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. How are you all today? All right. I told Reverend Shull they should tell you before you write your speech that it's going to be on the radio. Maybe I'd have made it a little more scathing. Maybe I'd toned it down. I want to thank the men of Alpha Phi Alpha for inviting me here today and for allowing the Urban League to participate today. This is really exciting. This room is so beautiful. If only you could stand here and see what I see. It is absolutely amazing. Thank you to every sorority and fraternity in this city for all of the work that you do in the trenches. Certainly my own sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and the men of Alpha Phi Alpha, especially today. This city would not be what it is without you. I also want to say this. There is no other place where we can see so many black elected officials in the room. Right. Now let me tell you this. There are white people who do great work for us, for this community, and they are to be acknowledged, and we should support them where we can. It is the right thing to do. There is something special, though, about folks with brown skin running to represent us. They ought to stand up again and be acknowledged. Stand up. Stand up. If you are, let's stand up. We thank God for you. It takes courage. And if you're running, stand up. Tanisha, I didn't see you. Stand up. There she is. It takes courage to run in this climate, in this country. It takes courage. And they are to always be acknowledged. You're not going to lose your 501c3 for recognizing your people. We got to always do that. Ooh, I didn't mean to get myself so. Are you going to edit the radio? Okay, let's see. And I'm serious about this thing. It is important for us to pay attention and to be engaged And you think about the money that it costs, that we don't have and have never had access to.
Right.
And for them to throw their hats in the ring, it is a big deal.
Right.
And none of them are running against each other.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And that is not to say, again, that there are not other elected officials that are phenomenal. I'm sitting with Barbara Sexton Smith. I see Judge Lavery. How do you say your name? Lavery. I have been watching your court for months. I believe that the man is fair. I see Commonwealth Attorney Wine here today. There are others. And my former law partner, Judge Edwards, who I love dearly. Regretfully, I am not in a position to make you feel comfortable today.
All right.
Speak the truth.
Yes, sir.
Dr. King was more than a dreamer.
That's right. That's
He
right.
was a doer.
Yeah.
He was a feeler. You cannot do what he did, the work that he did. You cannot work for the people, for the movement, and not be in love with them. It is impossible to lead people and not have those you seek to serve not publicly criticize you, disagree with your tactics, claim that their strategy would be better than yours. It is a given that Dr. King negotiated deals where the men in power on the other side did not keep their word.
Right.
It is a difficult thing to negotiate freedom with people who see so much benefit to your bondage.
Right.
Dr. King had to have been hurt by us sometimes. He had to have felt betrayed by other members of the cloth who claimed to love God but couldn't see fit to love the people that he'd spent his life working to uplift.
Right.
He had to have waken up and read the paper and some days thought that the progress we were making all had been lost. The evidence of his anger, maybe even his disgust, was in that letter from the Birmingham jail. A letter that he wrote with no books around, no research required, just his life experience and a newspaper that had been smuggled in. That letter was written in response to an ad that white moderates had placed in the Birmingham paper, saying generally that Dr. King needed to be patient, wait for a more convenient season. The letter from the Birmingham jail was a response to the rage he must have felt when he read their words. He must have thought, wait for what? Wait until we are all dead? Wait until our children fall further and further behind in education? Wait for employers to be willing to invest in our training, promotion, and pay? What are we waiting for?
Right.
Should we wait for the 1% to finally want to share with the rest of us? Maybe we should wait for a black president. Oh yeah, we did that. Well, maybe now we need to wait for a black president with a Congress with a heart to support that black president's agenda. I imagine his letter from the Birmingham jail must have been tempered compared to what he was really feeling.
Right.
After all, at that point, there were maybe only 5 black churches in Birmingham that would even allow him to hold mass meetings in their buildings.
Right.
He must have been heartbroken by the black folk who were making a decent living and didn't want to rock the boat. The ones that wished he would just be quiet.
Right.
The letter from the Birmingham jail was described by some white clergy as vicious, unhelpful, serving only to worsen race relations. Worsen? Really? What can ever be said that could be worse than that which is actually happening? America has elected a president that speaks in ways that cause us to conclude that he does not like, respect, or value black people.
Right.
Not our history,
right,
and certainly not our future.
Right.
And this is not new for him.
Right.
He's had a history of housing discrimination in his private business. The President of the United States called black and brown countries shitholes. If he understood or even cared about America's history, he would know that this is the equivalent of raping a woman and then being angry because she is not a virgin. It is sick.
Right.
America has taken so much from black and brown people, and yet we are constantly described as worthless.
Right.
Our governor has made us the first state to require work, volunteerism, or school in order to qualify for Medicaid.
Right.
And many will say, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong? The wealthiest country in the world ought to have universal health care.
That's right.
We should not be thinking of ways to cut people off.
Right.
Work is good. Work is good if you can get it and if you're trained properly. What happens to those that get jobs that pay just enough to kick you off Medicaid, but not enough to survive?
Right.
What happens with those people? You make too much for Medicaid, but not enough for child care. Too much for Medicaid, but not enough for transportation. Maybe if he were alive today, Dr. King would be told, wait until the powers that be feel that health care is a right and not a privilege. Our governor has instructed us to pray. If you know nothing else about black people,
come on now.
If you know nothing else about black people, Governor, if you know nothing else about black people, we know how to pray. We have been praying all of our lives since we got here. It is prayer that has kept us, that has sustained us, that has allowed us to shave the man, the woman who has oppressed us. We have prayed through it.
That's right.
It was prayer that kept us from cutting the throat. Understand, it has always been prayer. We have always prayed. Do not come to our city with all your money, all your resources, and all your power and direct us to do what we were born doing.
Right. That's right.
We want investment.
That's what
we want economic opportunity.
That's right.
We want a seat at the table. We want a chance to control our own destiny. We have ideas. We have dreams. We can create.
Right.
We simply do not have the treasure.
Right.
Amen. We have been stripped of the opportunity for that. Our school system is in trouble.
Right.
The achievement gap remains, and at the rate we are moving, it will not close in your lifetime or your children's lifetimes. If we keep it up, we're on about a 100-year trajectory.
My God.
What would they have said to Dr. King? Wait, be patient. We'll continue to lose generation after generation, but eventually you'll catch up.
Lord.
Be patient. Some believe the answer for JCPS is a state takeover. What state? The one with the governor that rushed to make us first in the country to change our Medicaid laws?
Right.
That's the state? I think we've got some talented folks in JCPS that have some solutions.
Right.
We're not listening. Why should we trust our fate to men with these sort of ideas. Why should we have faith in the people with the same hearts that created the broken system?
Right.
We didn't build this system. When is it our turn to lead?
Right.
What would they tell Dr. King? Give us time. We'll fix it soon. We'll create charter schools and we'll fund them because the public school system costs too much to fix. It would take too many resources to turn it around. Dr. King points out in his letter from the Birmingham jail that everything done to Jews in Germany was legal, that there are laws. There are just laws and unjust laws. And that is the same for Black America. When we were dealing with crack and drug addiction, we were in prison. But when the opioid addiction came around, and the victims looked different, the police will go to the house over and over again to revive. They don't always go to jail. Now we understand that drug addiction is a public health epidemic. Where were they when we needed them? I'm just saying, everything that's ever been done to us, from lynching to redlining, was legal. And now, when we have nothing, people are angry, resentful. It is time for us to have some investment in our city.
That's right.
I'm excited about Passport. I am excited about the YMCA, but I am more excited about the $30 million track development, and let me tell you why. Because it matters whose name, what organization is on the deed. It is time for Black people to own something. We are owed that. We need something in West Louisville that will bring $20,000 people with disposable income into that part of the community. It is time for us. Don't allow anybody to talk you out of that. It is time for it.
That's right.
There's a reason that I have to go, that Larry McDonald has to go and ask. Nobody likes to be in a position to ask. All of a sudden, I understand why people sell drugs. I do not condone it, but I want you to understand it is a humiliating thing to have to ask for that which you cannot do for yourself. You have no idea what it's like to want to build something and you don't have the money, ain't never had access to the money. I understand what it feels like to want to do something for your community and you can't. And the people who can don't understand why you would want to. 2018. Dr. King wrote in the letter from the Birmingham jail that riot is the language of the unheard. I am here to tell you all that as nice as we look in our suits, and we got our hair done, our nails done, brothers looking good, everybody's smelling good, but we are rioting in our hearts and in our souls. And every time we hear the defense of racism and racist leaders, a little bit of that rioting just spills out. It spills out of us. Dr. King gave us the letter from the Birmingham jail, but he also did something else. He took us to a mountaintop where he envisioned all of us living as equals and free at last. And I would say to you, that can happen, but we've still got some dreaming to do. We've still got some loving to do. We have still got some work to do. In my mind, Colin Kaepernick is as much of a hero as Ali. As Dr. King said in the video showed earlier, we want America to be true to what you said on paper. In the letter from the Birmingham jail, Dr. King writes, "Oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The yearning for freedom eventually manifests itself, and that is what has happened to the American Negro. Something within has reminded him of his birthright of freedom, and something without has reminded him that it can be gained, consciously or unconsciously. He has been caught up. The United States Negro is moving with a sense of great urgency toward the promised land of racial justice. If one recognizes this vital urge that has engulfed the Negro community, one should readily understand why public demonstrations are taking place. The Negro has many pent-up resentments and latent frustrations, and he must release them. So let him march. Let him make prayer pilgrimages to the City Hall. Let him go on freedom rides and try to understand why he must do so. If he is repressed, if his emotions repressed are not released in nonviolent ways, they will seek expression through violence. This is not a threat, but a fact of history. In 2018, let's just understand, the President of the United States was elected. He had 46% of the vote. In 2018, he is the #2 man of the year, I think, according to One magazine, President Barack Obama being #1. But it says something about our country's division, that they could even be 1 and 2.
Right.
There are really no two men more different.
Right.
It is such evidence of our struggle. It is such evidence of the place we are in. 46% of the vote is not everybody. There are people who are committed to justice and fairness. And if you have ever wanted to stand, this is the day.
Right.
This is the moment.
Right.
We have no time for games.
Right.
We have no time for moderation. We have no time to wait.
Right.
It is imperative that all people of good conscience, black, white, everybody, stand up and do something in the space you are in, wherever you are. Be a voice for those who need it. You know what justice looks like.
Right.
You know what justice looks like. You've seen police brutality. How can you be silent? It cannot always be our fault.
Right.
It is time for something different in America. And let us start with Louisville, Kentucky. Let us start with Louisville, Kentucky. Please, do not be so comfortable, black folks, with your 2-car garages in your central air that you don't rock the boat.
Right.
The boat needs to be rocked. And white folks, y'all damn need to tip the boat over. We are tired. We can't wait anymore. It is time for something to change. We have been praying and working and praying and working. We need more, faster. So I am thankful to be here today and to stand for those who have no voice, who would never be invited to certain tables. I try always to be respectful, but always to be honest. Because in the end, really all I care about is that God would say, well done.
Right.
I don't owe you nothing,
Right.
but I owe a whole lot of people who died for me everything. And I will end with this. It is my favorite way to end. And maybe I will do this for the rest of my life. Maya Angelou once said, she was lying in her bed, and all of a sudden she heard the door. And then she heard footsteps. And she reached over in her nightstand and pulled out a gun. And she said out loud in her home, to whoever was coming in, is this what you are willing to die doing? And then all of a sudden, she heard footsteps going the other way. And then she heard the door close. I read somewhere that a couple of years ago, and it was so interesting to me, that our governor said, if Clinton had won, there might have to be bloodshed in our country to get back what had been lost. I don't understand that, but there is a video of it, and there's a transcript of the speech. But I want you all to know that I stand ready. I have found the thing that I am willing to die doing, and it is about justice for all of us. Thank you.
Sadiqa Reynolds. Our last speaker, Pastor Daniel Corey Scholl, is the senior pastor of the Burnett Avenue Baptist Church in Louisville, Kentucky, a congregation committed to creating compelling environments in which people are developed in totally committed disciples of Christ. In 2013, Reverend Scholl led the Burnett Avenue congregation to purchase and renovate a new church campus, which currently facilitates 4 weekend worship services and a myriad of church community activities. Pastor Scholl is the author of a new book, Detours to Greatness. He is also the proud father of Daniel Harrison and Zoe Elizabeth. Will you please welcome our last speaker, Pastor Daniel Corey Scholl.
Good morning. Well, truly nothing else needs to be said, but since I put on my clothes this morning, I guess I'll say what I have prepared. First, to the distinguished men of the Alpha Lambda Chapter of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, thank you for this esteemed honor of being here today as we celebrate and commemorate the life and work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. To my co-presenters, Ms. Sadiqa Reynolds and Mr. Cornish, whom are both doing incredible work in our city, and I'm just glad to be on the same program with them. I'll be honest with you, I'm going to add this day to my resume, for it is indeed an incredible moment. Mr. Cornish is one of the great examples for me in this city of great professionalism, and certainly every time that I'm around Sadiqa Reynolds, I am awestruck because she's nothing but a rock star. Every time I hear her, I know that the spirit of Ellen Baker and Shirley Chisholm yet reside among us. My regards to all who are gathered here. Before I jump into my speech, everybody else recognized their pastor, and Ms. G said that her pastor is here, Reverend Williams, and Ms. Reynolds said her pastor is here, Reverend Williams, and Mr. Cornish said that his pastor is here, Reverend Williams. And so I just want to point out that my pastor is here, Reverend Williams. Y'all just don't see me, but I gotta go to my own church. Rudyard Kipling put pen to paper and wrote, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your term long after they are gone, and so hold on where there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate the life of Dr. King on this 15th day of the first month of the 18th year of the 21st century, a great if hovers over history. 50 years after the murder of Dr. King by white supremacists and the structures that they have cultivated, we continue to be confronted as to if the reality of white supremacy will ever be defeated, to the end that all people can be free to live in the fullness of their identity regardless of ethnicity or religion or sexual orientation. After all, we ascended to the monumental heights of celebrating the first black family in the White House only to condescend to electing the most uncultured, uncouth, underexposed, classless megalomaniac as the leader of the free world. And the only reason for that reality has to be that there still exist elements in this country who would prefer a mediocre white man to any black man, and definitely not a woman. Over the axis of history hangs a great if, interrogating whether or not we have the moral courage as a society to address the ugliness of militarism, of racism and poverty, and the spirit of Dr. King in order to cultivate a more equitable society. Or will we continue to allow our nation to wallow in the malaise of despair, locking King into the sunlight of his 1963 I Have a Dream speech, but ignoring his uncomfortable 1967 challenge to the nation concerning a redistribution of wealth? A great if hovers above the intersection of progress and regressiveness in America as we struggle to defeat fake news and fake narratives as a consequence of living in a moment where people would rather be comforted by a lie rather than confronted with the truth. A great if hovers over the axis of history. Even now, as women rise in various industries, refusing to be silenced by shame, or to allow sexual misconduct and abuses of power to go unchecked, as we now have been presented with an opportunity to make the world a safer, more beautiful place for our little girls than it has ever been before. There's a great if hovering above the axis of history. One day, a New York Times reporter interviewed Viktor Frankl as to how he maintained unflappability through his unspeakable passage through concentration camps in Auschwitz. And Mr. Frankl made the stirring observation that the last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude and chart one's own way forward in any set of circumstances. As we celebrate the life of Dr. King this morning, we have a choice to make. We have a choice to either perpetuate the sanitized image of Dr. King's message, where color blindness is celebrated, but poverty is never eradicated. We have a choice as to which image of Dr. King we'll elevate. Will it be this diminished version of Dr. King's message that ignores his challenge to passive Christians who worship a liberating Jesus on Sunday mornings but participate in the creation and sustaining of oppressive, sexist, racist, and xenophobic structures Monday through Friday?
In his letter to the Birmingham jail, he pointed out that the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who remain neutral in times of great moral conflict. This is not the time to elevate sanitized images of our heroes. Lift up the radical images so that our children would understand that you cannot always be at ease in Zion. But in fact, sometimes you have to fight. And ladies and gentlemen, if there was ever a time to fight, the time is now. We cannot allow our misguided and intellectually limited governor to ransack people's pensions and run their health care, ruin their health care, or allow Kentucky to become the national experiment for politicians who belong on the Gone Show. It's time to fight to ensure that west of 9th Street has a robust economic engine and is not ignored by the business elite in our city or the politicians who pander to them. It's time to fight.
Yes, sir.
To address the growing issue of homelessness here in our city of Louisville, Kentucky. Why is it that we can find $139 million in city and state tax increment financing for the Omni, but can't find a way to turn abandoned homes in the West End into low-income housing? Something's wrong with this picture. It's time to fight. It's definitely time to fight to send Donald Trump back to the casino where he came from. He has no business living at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's time to fight.
Yes, sir.
This is no time to be passive. This is a time to be radical in our pursuit of justice and equality for all. Do not buy into the sanitized versions of King's message. He was not killed because he marched. He was murdered because he fought for economic justice. He fought against poverty. He fought against militarism. He fought against racism. And it's our job to continue the fight because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. It's time to fight, and we need all hands on deck. Every church, every Greek letter organization, every sorority and fraternity, every organization, every community, we need to all get into this fight. As we celebrate the life of Dr. King, please, ma'am, please, sir, do so with a full understanding that Dr. King was the product of a branch of Christianity that understood resistance to be central to the gospel claims of Jesus Christ. Dr. King shared the religious tradition of Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey. He shared the religious tradition of Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth. It's a tradition that has been fighting since its inception. The black church is often seen as and assessed based on its hallmarks of singing and shouting. But understand that the black church was born in the crucible of suffering, weaned on struggle, called into being to do everything possible to help black people survive in a society that was designed to destroy them. King was a product of that tradition. It's a tradition that knows how to fight. And undergirding that tradition is the narrative found in the Hebrew Bible. Those of us who graduated from Sunday school remember those opening words from the book of Exodus. I am a Baptist preacher, so I might as well go to the book. It says this: now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Martin Luther King. He attended failing schools where they did not teach of the civil rights movement or abolitionism. In fact, they referred to slaves as immigrant workers. Because the only faces that he had in his cabinet were Uncle Tom's, he had no context by which to properly understand the populace, so a series of laws were passed designed to stifle the people. Enslavement became a way of life, but whenever there is oppression, God will always empower people to become their own liberator. After a series of confrontations with Pharaoh, the Israelites marched out of Egypt. They began to get corporate jobs and send their children to private schools. They witnessed a sun-kissed man leading their nation toward the realization of their potential, but as soon as they got comfortable, they noticed the sea in front of them that was littered with voting suppression and police brutality and an ever-expanding prison-industrial complex system. And if that were not enough, Trump and Steve Bannon and Jeff Sessions were behind them. attempting to chase them back into bondage. But in that tension, the people kept moving, stepping toward their Red Sea. They did all they could, and then God stepped in and did what they couldn't. God parted the water. Attempts at voter suppression couldn't stop them. The emergence of white supremacists carrying tiki torches couldn't stop them. God parted the waters, and they marched to the other side, exclaiming, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last." Stay focused, stay blessed, and stay woke. Peace.
Thank you so much, Pastor Shaw. To Elliot Kelly Jr., Al Cornish, Sadiq Reynolds, and Pastor Shaw, God bless you and thank you for bringing us the word today.
Yeah.
To all of you that are here today, we have 365 days of service. 24/7, not just this holiday. 24/7. So when you leave, what are you going to do? And I mean that. I work 24/7 to try to make a difference here. Be kind to each other and help each other and accept what we say to each other. Don't do it out of nastiness. I have to thank David Tandy. He came over today, gave me a hug and said, "Hello, sister, you look so beautiful, but your jacket is on inside out." Thank you, my brother. He did that out of kindness because he loved me. And I appreciate that. Be willing to help someone and not hurt someone. As we are done, we will have closing remarks by ALEF Executive Director Gerald Joyner, followed by the benediction, Manuel Gar. Again, you can stay and see the Muhammad Ali Center here if you would like for free while you are here. And when you leave, I ask that you reach out to someone you don't know, introduce yourself, and have a blessed and glorious day. Thank you.
It's smoking up here. Have your hearts not been touched this morning?
Yes, sir.
When the brothers started planning this 5 years ago, one of the things we wanted to do was touch the current, but also look to the future. So we do that by providing youth speakers. So what Mr. Kelly, we have you up here for is to show you where you'll be working in the vineyard. Right? Because we all are given gifts, we all are given talents. Then we're needing to use them. So like you said, the greatest things in life come from the dirt. You're not dirty, brother. We're just prepared. Amen. Mr. Corner.
Too much for the mind.
In my job, we call this technical difficulties. Hold on.
You're right, that never happened at Spalding. But in all seriousness, Mr. Kelly, thank you. Mr. Cornish, we appreciate you leading us through the leadership strategies, the 8 leadership strategies of Dr. King. They're very pertinent to the day, so we're thankful for that. To Sadiqa Reynolds, everything done to the Jews in Germany was legal. That doesn't make it right. Thank you for reminding us. Thank you for being who you are. To Reverend Shule,
Yes, sir.
the moral courage to address the issues of the day. Because this thing is socially interwoven into every institution that we interact with, that we work with, and that we take part in. And it's important for us all collectively to remember that, because we are on the fighting lines, the front lines, every day. So it is our hope from the Alpha Lambda Chapter of Alpha Alpha that given these perilous times, you take a little bit more energy to go back and stand in the gap in whatever professed mission your organization or your personal mission drives you towards. We have some quick gifts for our presenters. These are for Al Cornish, Sadiqa Reynolds, Reverend Shule, Sister Dante, Brother Kelly, two things, or three things that I've done. The first is, I was recently informed, and I think it was Sadiqa who mentioned this, it is a blessing when you get the opportunity to see African-American elected officials and African-American leaders come together, be in the same place to celebrate the same thing. You don't understand what this view looks like, knowing you, some of you very personally, and knowing what you do in the community. This is a picture of pure beauty. So give yourselves a hand this morning. But I would like to recognize Lieutenant Colonel Tony Gant, who is the first female and the first black woman to hold the position with the Army Corps of Engineers. Is she in? Can she stand and wave? Lieutenant Colonel. Colonel, I'm sorry, it was given the wrong way. I apologize. I'm trying to take you backwards. Bless you, sister. Congratulations. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors. I would like to thank Louisville Gas and Electric, PNC Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Brown & Foreman, or Brown Foreman, Dr. Gregory Woolfolk, Stoddard and Associates, Emmaus Ministries, Louisville Free Public Media, as well as G.C. Williams Funeral Home.
As it was pointed out by Tori, we are not at Spalding this year. The batteries did go out, but I really would like to take this opportunity to thank Tori and her entire team at Spalding. When we had this vision and dream 4 years when we had it 4 years ago, we went to Spalding, and they were very welcoming of us at Alpha. So we're appreciative of that. We're glad that you're here. We're thankful for your partnership. Now I want to recognize some very special people. First, I would like to say a happy Founders Day to the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Thank you for your continued support and patronage. Would like to thank the women of Delta Sigma Beta Sorority. The men of Omega Psi Phi, thank you very much. The men of Kappa Alpha Psi. And I believe there are some ladies in here from Zeta Phi Beta. We need each other like it wasn't yesterday. And regardless of our collegiate fun back and forth with one another, we need to support one another. So thank you for your support, and you can find Alpha for yours as well when needed. Will the men of Alpha Phi Alpha stand, please? These brothers have been working for the last 11 months tirelessly. I want to thank them. You give power to our motto, first of all, servants of all, we will transcend all. Bless you, brothers, and thank you. Thank you all for coming. Look forward to seeing you in 2019.
Good morning. As we're about to close our 5th annual Hope Breakfast, I ask that you would join me in a word of prayer as we go forward throughout the rest of this day with the various activities of service that we have going on throughout the city. I'd ask that you bow with me at this time, and the Lord might bless us as we go throughout the rest of this day. Eternal God, Lord, we thank you once again for this blessed opportunity you've given us to gather here on this day that we set aside to honor our dear brother, Martin Luther King Jr., his life and his legacy. Lord, there have been a lot of good things said today. There's been a lot of good ideas, a lot of good ideals, a lot of things said today that embody both the growth and the perseverance that has taken place over the many years that we have been here on these shores that we now recognize as the United States of America. Father, we know that as far as we have come collectively as a nation, and even more specifically as a people, Lord, we still have a long way to go. And so, Lord, I pray that first, that you would be pleased to dominate the hearts of those who stand against progress, who stand against embracing equity and everybody having the opportunity to live out the American dream. I pray, Father, that you would be pleased to dominate those who are in positions of power and influence, that you might be pleased to show them a better way. In the meantime, Lord, I pray that you would continue to lead, guide, and direct the steps of those who are pushing toward that brighter day, who are pushing toward that day of equity, who are fighting these fights in the trenches, Lord, to see that everyone might be able to realize the dream that our brother King spoke of. Lord, I pray as we go forward throughout the rest of this day, that you will bless all the events that are taking place to commemorate this day and this legacy. I pray that you would grant everyone safe travel and mercies as we part from this place, and pray that your grace and your mercy and your abundant of blessing might fall fresh upon every person under the sound of my voice. Lord, it is by the grace of God that we come to you, that we thank you, that we praise you. And it's in the mighty name of Jesus that I do pray. Amen. Amen. Good evening. Good morning.